Hi, 8th grade, and welcome to the next lesson for our novel, Farewell to Manzanar, by Jean Wakasuki Houston and her husband, James D. Houston. I have been doing lessons per chapter pretty much, since the chapters are pretty short. But as I stop and talk to you, I realize that the lessons are getting to be pretty long. They tend to be at least 30 minutes, even for our shorter lessons. So from this point on, I have started a timer, and I'm going to keep the lessons at about 20 minutes, which means we may not finish a chapter in a full lesson. So you'll have to kind of keep track of what the lessons say on them. So this will be lesson 14 based on chapter 14, but if by chance we don't finish the chapter in 20 minutes, lesson 15 will be the end of chapter 14. So we're gonna end up spreading this out a little bit more. So hopefully you're not too overwhelmed with the questions and the lessons together in the same day. So let's take a look at the questions that we do have for chapter 14. And there are only 3. So we see on here, chapter 14, we have question 1, what is the real cause of Papa's occasional angry outbursts? 2, what is the double heartbreak that Eleanor, Jean's eldest sister, must face? And then 3, when Eleanor and her baby boy survive the difficult childbirth, Mama and Papa share a rare moment of tenderness and connection. How does their intimacy make Jean feel? Okay, and I will point out that the picture below here is a recreation of the camp. Manzanar does currently have a national park site there that I believe people can go to it and visit, and later on in the book, actually Jean goes back to visit it, and this is a recreation of what the camp looked like. Pretty neat to see the mountains in the background that she talks about, and then kind of the desolation of the camp within there. All right, I'm going to stop the share, and once again, I'm not going to put the book up on the screen. I am hopeful that you have your book handy, just like I have mine, and that you will get it out and you will follow along with me while I read. If you are comfortable reading on your own, you don't need to watch the lessons at all. There are certain ones that are more challenging and that you might want my help as you go through them. This is one of the ones you could probably handle on your own if you choose to. So let's take a look. Chapter 14 is called In the Fire Break. He was right, of course. I did not know what I was getting myself into. So remember, that was talking about being baptized. Years later, I silently thanked him for forcing me to postpone such decisions until I was old enough to think for myself. But at the time, it was unforgivable. And it was typical of his behavior during those days. He had no boat crew to command, no income to manage, no trips to plan, not even a dining table to preside over. He would putter blandly along, then suddenly, unexpectedly, as if to remind himself he was still in charge of something, he would burst out like that. His intentions right, but his manner stubborn and relentless, forcing distances between us. As his youngest child, I had grown up blessed with special attentions. Now, more and more, I found myself cut off from him. When I needed reassurance, I would get it from Woody or Chizu, or from Mama, who had more of herself to give by this time. Then one afternoon, there came a moment when I was cut off from both of them, Papa and Mama together. It wasn't loneliness I felt, or isolation. They were still within reach. Rather, it was the first brief flicker of total separateness. It could have occurred anywhere we might have been living. I had reached the age. This scene happened to be set in one of the fire breaks at Manzanar. My oldest sister, Eleanor, figures in it. She lay in the camp hospital bed, trying to give birth to a baby she had thought she'd be having in Reno, Nevada, where she and her husband, Shig, had relocated in 1943. Through friends, they had found a house there, and Shig lined up a job in a restaurant. Early in 1944, the government decided that Nisi should be eligible for selective service, like all other American citizens. A few months later, Shig was drafted. Eleanor, pregnant, could find neither work nor money enough to pay for having a baby. She couldn't stay in Reno, and she couldn't go with Shig to the Army's training camp in Louisiana. So she voluntarily re-entered camp. When she went into the hospital, it was a time of great anxiety in our family. Two of my other sisters had born children there. They had both hemorrhaged badly, and blood plasma was in short supply, our needs being low on the wartime priority list. One sister might have died had not Woody provided blood for direct transfusion. In the case of a sister-in-law of ours who had miscarried and hemorrhaged, no one is able to arrest it in time, and she just bled to death in her hospital bed. These memories were very much with us. Papa, in particular, was worried. Eleanor was his oldest daughter, and this was her first child. Her husband had gone to Germany with an infantry division, and now she was struggling through the second day of a difficult labor. He and Mama were taking turns sitting with her, and what I remember late the second afternoon is Mama running toward us from the other side of the fire break. I was walking with Papa as he started out for the hospital, and here she came, small and running, all bundled up. It was December, shouting, "Co, Co," making little puffs of frost in the icy air. I looked at Papa, and his face had filled with terror. He tried to run to meet her, but could barely keep his stride. His look filled me with terror, too. I was sure Eleanor had died in the hospital. Our fear must have held back Mama's progress. It seemed we watched her run for minutes across that stretch of cleared sand. There was room enough for a football game or an entire parade. In my eyes then, it was a threatening openness, a no man's land. We met her in the sand, Mama, breathless, small in front of him, looking up saying, "Co, Co, it's a boy." His face gave away, his eyes filled. "A boy, yes." And Eleanor? "Yes, okay, okay. They're both okay." His tears let go, unchecked. Mama was already crying. She began to talk excitedly, jabbering the details as the news sunk in. My fear was replaced by an odd detachment. The burden fell away, leaving me afloat, and I was a spectator, witnessing the nearest to a love scene I would ever see between them. My own perception removed me from it. I was more awed than aware, but I knew whatever I was watching was somehow both tender and profound, with an intimacy that made me invisible to them. Papa put an arm around her, needing her support. He was wearing the rust-colored turtleneck sweater he used to take on fishing trips, the one she had knitted for him before the war. Now, as she talked, the fingers of one hand played over its yarn, as if inspecting her own workmanship, while the late sun turned this rusty sweater dark shades of orange. They stood there in the great expanse of the firebreak, far out from the rows of barracks, weeping with relief and happiness, talking quietly, just the two of them. And that is the end of the chapter. So real quick, we'll just peek at those questions again. I think they're pretty straightforward, but I'm going to make them a little bigger for my own eyes. So what is the real cause of Papa's occasional angry outbursts? When we see that at the beginning of the chapter, it talks about how he doesn't have all those things that he used to have that he was in charge of. So sometimes he just feels the need to take control and be able to have that control. The double heartbreak that Eleanor, Jean's eldest sister, must face. So double, we're looking for two things. So one, she's back at Manzanar. And what is it that brought her back to Manzanar? The fact that her husband is in the military and he's overseas. So two parts, she's going to have to deliver without her husband, and she's going to have to deliver in Manzanar, where it's kind of, there's fear that they don't have enough supplies, that she might be a difficult labor and she won't be able to survive it. However, yay, at the end, it's a baby boy, and we get this tenderness at the end. And you would think that would make Jean feel great to see her parents sharing this rare moment of joy, but it doesn't seem to be that that's what she feels. She's kind of like, hey, I'm not in this. Where do I fit in? So it's that distance that she feels within there. So I think I managed to do this lesson in less than 20 minutes. So if you would please make sure that you answer up those 3 questions and get those submitted, and we'll be moving on to the next chapter. So I will stop our share. You have a great day. See you later.